Yamunati Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paripajikacharya Ashtotar Sadashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paripajikacharya Ashtotar Sadashri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 14, Text 40 and 41. Prāṇināṁ, hanyamānānāṁ, dīnānām, akṛta-āgasām, strīṇāṁ, nigṛhyamānānāṁ, kopiteṣu, mahātmasu, prāṇinām hanyamānānām, prāṇinām hanyamānānām, dīnānām akṛta-āgasām, dīnānām akṛta-āgasām, strīṇām nigṛhyamāṇānām, strīṇām nigṛhyamāṇānām, strīṇām nigṛhyamāṇānām, kopiteṣu mahātmasu, kopiteṣu mahātmasu, prāṇinām hanyamānānām, dīnānām akṛta-āgasām, strīṇām nigṛhyamāṇānām, kopiteṣu mahātmasu, prāṇinām hanyamānānām, dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
prāṇināṁ hanyamānānāṁ,
prāṇināṁ hanyamānānām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
strīṇāṁ
nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
prāṇināṁ hanyamānānāṁ,
hanyamānānām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
prāṇināṁ hanyamānānāṁ, dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ, kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
prāṇināṁ hanyamānānāṁ,
prāṇinām hanyamānānām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
akṛta-āgasām,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
prāṇināṁ hanyamānānāṁ,
prāṇinām hanyamānānām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
prāṇināṁ hanyamānānāṁ,
prāṇinām hanyamānānām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
dīnānām akṛta-āgasām,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu,
kopiteṣu mahātmasu, prāṇināṁ,
prāṇināṁ,
when the living entities,
when the living entities,
hanyamānānāṁ,
hanyamānānāṁ,
being killed,
being killed,
dīnānām,
dīnānām,
of the poor,
of the poor,
akṛta-āgasām,
akṛta-āgasām,
of the faultless,
of the faultless,
strīṇāṁ,
strīṇāṁ,
of the women,
of the women,
nigṛhyamānānām,
nigṛhyamānānām,
being tortured,
being tortured,
kopiteṣu,
kopiteṣu,
being enraged,
being enraged,
mahātmasu,
mahātmasu,
when the great souls.
when the great souls.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. They will kill poor, faultless, living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. Purport. Demoniac activities are predominant when innocent, faultless, living entities are killed, women are tortured, and the great souls engaged in Kṛṣṇa consciousness are enraged. In a demoniac society, innocent animals are killed to satisfy the tongue, and women are tortured by unnecessary sexual indulgence. When there are women and meat, there must be liquor and sex indulgence. When these are prominent in society, by God's grace, one can expect a change in the social order by the Lord himself or by his bona fide representative. Text 41, I'm just going to read this. Tada vishveshvara krudho bhagavaloka bhavanaha hanishyatyavatiriyaso yatadrin shataparvadrik. At that time, the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, will descend and kill them, just as Indra smashes the mountains with his thunderbolts. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.8, the Lord descends as an incarnation to deliver the devotees and kill the miscreants. The Lord of the universe and of everything would appear to kill the sons of Diti because of their offending the devotees of the Lord. There are many agents of the Lord, such as Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Goddess Durga, and Kali, who can chastise any formidable miscreants in the world. The example of mountains being smashed by a thunderbolt is very appropriate. The mountain is considered the most strongly built body within the universe, yet it can be easily smashed by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not need to descend in order to kill any strongly built body. He comes down just for the sake of his devotees. Everyone is subject to the miseries offered by material nature, but because the activities of miscreants, such as killing innocent people and animals or torturing women, are harmful to everyone and are therefore a source of pain for the devotees, the Lord comes down. He descends only to give relief to his ardent devotees. The killing of the miscreant by the Lord is also the mercy of the Lord towards the miscreant, although apparently the Lord takes the side of the devotee. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his activities of killing the miscreants and favoring the devotees. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Pishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadama Hyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripasandubhi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivikasa Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschate Deshtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare prāṇināṁ hanyamānānāṁ dīnānām akṛta-āgasām strīṇāṁ nigṛhyamānānāṁ kopiteṣu mahātmasu. They will kill poor, faultless living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. So here now, we're hearing about the consequences of Diti's action and Kasyapa's action of engaging in this illicit connection at an inauspicious time. As Vishnu Chitta Prabhu was mentioning before, that, Diti came to her husband Kashyapa and was asking him, please, give me sons, and being very insistent. And then he said, just wait a little bit, be patient. And she did not heed his warning. He told her, this is very inauspicious. Lord Shiva will see, we shouldn't do it right now. And she disregarded everything he said, basically ignored what he said, wasn't even really listening. And then as soon as the act was done, she came back and, as Vishnu Chitta Prabhu was explaining, it's very much like a childlike mentality that, oh, I've done something wrong, now please give me shelter. Coming back and asking the person, in the child's case it's the parents, in this case it's her husband, coming back and literally just completely disobeying what they just told you to do, and now you're having to face the consequences of your wrong action, and you're begging for shelter and help when they literally just gave that to you. They were literally just helping you by telling you what not to do. You still did that, and now you have to face the consequences. So this is she's very desperate in this situation, and now Kashyapa is explaining this is what's going to happen because of what just happened. Before, O haughty one, you will have 2 contemptuous sons born of your condemned womb. Unlucky woman, they will cause constant lamentation to all the 3 worlds. And now they will kill poor, faultless living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. And again, I've been kind of saying this when I've given classes on this chapter, but how anxiety-inducing this must be to hear. You've been wanting children, wanting sons, and this has been your desire, and you've been meditating upon this for a long time. And then as soon as you're going to have sons, you hear that they're going to be basically, the biggest demons that the material world has seen. And that they will torture women, kill poor, faultless living entities, enrage the great souls. What a fearful situation to be in, right? That you're now pregnant with these twins, or I guess, they're twins, and that are going to cause such horrible, horrible suffering and torture to living entities. And so, again, it's a very helpless situation. And we see the result of, again, this illicit affair, this illicit connection at the inauspicious time. And again, as I think I've also mentioned this, that they're married, and the desire was to have children through this connection. It wasn't, our definition of what we call illicit sex is sex outside of marriage or within marriage, not for the purpose of procreation, but according to, that definition, this doesn't seem so wrong, right? It's okay, she came with a desire to have children, and she wanted to get that from her husband, which is, again, that's an okay desire to have, to beget children as the wife of a husband, and but the way she went about it was completely wrong, and because, again, this childlike mentality, this wanting instant gratification, this led to such an inauspicious result. And we see, because of the slight discrepancy of doing it at the wrong time and engaging in the wrong way, not doing the proper purificatory processes, preparatory processes, as Vishnu Prabhu was explaining, the garbhodana samskara, how that works. Because that didn't all happen, even though, again, there was within marriage for the purpose of procreation, such a horrible result is coming about because of that. And we see that the reactions for these kinds of discrepancies are much more severe for those that have more responsibility, those that are higher in responsibility. And for example, like brahmanas, if they engage in illicit sex, they have a much worse reaction than if a shudra does it, because a shudra it's more or less expected that they'll engage in such activities. But whereas a brahmana is meant to be held to the highest standard and, has to go through all these purificatory processes, and they're meant to go through this. Everyone should do the garbhodana samskara, but especially it's expected of brahmanas, and it's expected that they'll bring, brahminical children in and raise them in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, etc. So the result from having a discrepancy in that is much more severe. Just like the example is given a lot of times by my Guru Maharaj, that if you go out on the street at night and you see two drunk people outside of a bar just brawling and fighting, you think, okay, like, it's not good, but it's kind of to be expected. They're just some college students or whatever, just some alcoholics or whatever. But if you go and see two high court judges doing that, Supreme Court judges, or if you see, Donald Trump and Joe Biden or something out there drunkenly fighting on the street, it would be a complete, it'd be national news, and it would be an outrage. And it's the same exact activity, but the person that's engaging in it, in one case, they're expected to have some level of responsibility, some level of dignity, and some level of, they're held to a much higher standard than everyone else because of their position in society. And so we see here that Kashyapa and Diti are, again, they're have a very exalted position. They are some of the first living entities in the universe. They're tasked with bringing forth population into the universe. And so this slight discrepancy, again, in terms of the timing of conceiving the child and the mentality that it was brought about, has led to such a disastrous result, as we can see. And so, getting into this verse a little bit more, they will kill poor, faultless living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. So heavy. So demoniac activities are predominant when innocent, faultless living entities are killed, women are tortured, and the great souls engaged in Kṛṣṇa consciousness are enraged. And so we can see, again, that the world we live in is being pretty accurately described right here. Demoniac activities are predominant when innocent, faultless living entities are killed. Well, that's happening all around us, all the time, every day. Karmis are killing innocent, faultless living entities on a daily basis, multiple times a day even. And that's how they're sustaining their bodily existence, is through consuming the flesh of innocent, faultless living entities. It's when you actually just really think about how horrible it is, that they're innocent. I mean, these poor animals have done no wrong. They're born into this horrible situations, these factory farms and such, where they're tortured and they're killed just for the satisfaction of the tongue, as it says here. And women are tortured, and the great souls engaged in Kṛṣṇa consciousness are enraged. So again, we see that all around us every day. And the really crazy thing is that nobody thinks anything of it. Nobody thinks there's really anything wrong with it. There's some vegans out there that, kind of hoo-hawing and saying that's really, really bad. But they're a very vast minority. The vast majority of people, at least in this country, are, again, happily and even to the point of being very proud. They're very proud of the fact that they kill and eat animals, actually. So if you point that out to them and say that it's wrong, actually they'll become defensive and they'll actually try to say that they're superior to you because they do that, right? And this idea, again, that God gave us, Dominion. God gave us dominion over the animals. This is a Christian idea. God gave us dominion over the animals, so therefore, that means we can do whatever we want. We can kill them and eat them if we want. That's dominion. Well, no, it actually means God gave us dominion over them to protect them. Just like we have dominion over children, doesn't mean we kill them and eat them. It's a very simple thing to understand. And so, yeah, it's just one thing popped in my mind. We were talking to this guy the other day, and he's like Christian, but kind of like, likes learning about other kind of schools of thought and philosophies, and he travels the world, and he went to Tibet and like Nepal and stuff, and he's cool. But one thing that we kind of like caught him on, that Kṛṣṇa Prabhu caught him on, was that he was talking, I've been learning about ahimsa, and like, when you grow your own food and stuff, and you're working in the soil, you shouldn't even kill the insects that are there, and you should be very careful, and just being very conscious of non-violence. And then Kṛṣṇa's like, well, are you vegetarian? He's like, well, not yet, I'm working on it.
Come on.
How the hypocrisy is so incredible, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I, again, speaking on this subject a little bit more, I've seen there's this guy that's, he's like a prominent atheistic philosopher, you could say, on YouTube, and he does all these debates, but he used to be a vegan, and he made all these videos about veganism. And one of them was about the cognitive dissonance, I think is the term he used, the cognitive dissonance of the meat eaters. And he basically said, like, you're saying that you love animals, you love dogs and cats and this and that, but then, and he's just showing like the conditions of these factory farms and stuff like that. And at the same time, you're going and putting that on your plate and eating that. It's just, again, and the people in the comments, oh my gosh, this turned me into a vegan, blah, blah, blah. So again, people are just, they're in so much ignorance, they don't realize even what it is on their plate. They don't really think about it, They don't go through this, well, how did this get here? What is this exactly? But when you actually really look at it, it's horrendous. So this guy's thinking about, I'm not going to kill an insect, but he doesn't compute, it doesn't connect in his mind that what is on his plate is, so much more sinful than even killing an insect, right? So, yeah, this is going on. So these demoniac activities are predominant in the society. Women are tortured. So this is another one. Women are tortured by unnecessary sexual indulgence. Again, pretty heavy. Women are tortured. So again, for a karmi that just living in society would think, what does this mean? Women are tortured by unnecessary sexual indulgence. Well, no. Women they become free by this sexual indulgence. They can go out and, do whatever they want and explore their sexuality and live freely and go, to whoever partners they want. They think that that's actually freedom. That's not torture. Torture would be having to be married and live in a house and cook for your husband and take care of your children. That would be torture because you're not able to live freely and do what you want. So literally that's what they're thinking. How is it that women are being tortured? Sex feels good. What's wrong with it? What's the problem? But we see that the mentality that arises in both sexes, but for example, that was being talked about here is that the women are being tortured by this, that the men see the women, and all conditioned living entities have this demoniac mentality of, all of this is for my enjoyment. All this material world is simply for my exploitation and enjoyment. And I want to get as much juice out of these sense objects as I possibly can. And so you see it in our consumeristic society that, just for example, you go buy like a bag of chips at the store, it's got some object of your sense gratification inside of it. You eat the chips, and then you just have this plastic wrapper, you just throw it. You don't care at all what happens to it, where it goes, and it ends up in a landfill or whatever and just never like decomposes. Or the other example is we used to have these, when you had 6 packs of cans. Do you guys remember like that little circular ring plastic thing that they had it on? Now they've changed it. But then you saw so many pictures of like birds or like animals that had that around their neck. You never seen that? They'll be like, so it's like, don't litter. And then it'll show like a penguin or I don't know, something with this thing. It was like choking, on this little, because it stuck its head in there and it was too tight and it like choked them. So the idea is that, okay, there's this object of my enjoyment, let me just exploit it, and then whatever happens to it afterwards, I don't care if it, hurts someone else, whatever. So it gets to the point where even we see women in that way. When we have this exploitive mentality, we see, a woman is just another object of my senses, just like that bag of chips. That woman is also there, let me just go enjoy that to my satisfaction, then when I'm done with it, that's it. So this objectification comes about, and through that, again, these women become tortured because they also see themselves as, well, they're, of course, deeply on the bodily platform of life where they think, I am this body. And then they become tortured because they're being treated by everyone else as an object, so they see themselves as a object, as a material object. And then what do they spend their time doing is, at the very entry level, is that they're just kind of putting on the makeup and spending hours looking at this and making sure everything looks nice and whatever. But then it actually gets to the point where, and this used to be like, at least growing up, I remember this was like not so common. This was kind of like a, rare thing. But all this like surgery that they do now, it seems like it's mainstream. Like everyone's doing this. They're injecting like chemicals in their cheeks, Botox, to like get more like, I don't know, like to make it look a certain way. And then their lips, they also inject some liquid in there. And then they go and they get literally nose jobs. Like the surgeon will like cut their nose and like do all kinds of crazy stuff. They're like manipulating and so it's, talk about torture. That's literally like you're using instruments of torture like knives and cutting your face up and like injecting things. This is like, without the context of hearing what it's about, it just sounds like someone's being tortured. If, you're going to put needles in you and cut you up and do this. And so they're literally torturing themselves in order to become more attractive to the opposite sex. And then they're being sold this lie, again, that if you just go out and you have your career and you have your independence, you get your own apartment, get your cat, and, decorate the apartment like you like, and you can go and download these apps, and you'll suddenly find hundreds of men that are willing to come, take you on a date and have sex with you, and you can choose whatever one you want, and, when you're tired with that one, you can go to the next one, it's no problem, it's, this is freedom. This is what they're sold, and then they believe it, they buy it, and this is what's happening in the society. It's actually completely crazy. And then they become tortured because this is such an unnatural position. This is such an unnatural arrangement that to act like hogs and dogs and just go from monkeys, just to go from one to the next, never having any kind of shelter, any kind of protection at all, just being completely exploited by men. Whereas, again, if it was properly arranged in society, that the women are protected from a young age and by their father, and then at the age of marriage, they're protected by their husband. And then later on, when the husband takes Vanaprastha and leaves, then the elder sons, all the sons will take care of and protect the woman, the mother. So this is proper. And in this way, the woman is not being tortured, rather she's being protected and cared for, and in that way. So when there are women in meat, there must be liquor and sex indulgence. So again, these things all kind of come together, right? So when this meat, when these innocent animals are killed and eaten, then the mercy is lost. And so if I'm not being merciful upon, animals, why would I be merciful upon these women? I'll just exploit the women too. I'll exploit animals for my tongue, and I'll exploit the women for my genitals. That's all. That's all we think. And so Again, it's very heavy. So when women and meat are there, there must be liquor and sex indulgence. So they all go together as well. What is this that I've heard that you drink the liquor because it helps digest the meat. Right, the wine. Wine helps digest the meat. So it all comes together as a package. Another example of, I meant to mention that when these innocent, faultless living entities are killed, how else is that happening in the world? So innocent, faultless living entities are killed. I talked about killing animals. Exactly. So again, and it goes hand in hand with this unnecessary sexual indulgence, torturing women, that the psychological torture that happens when women get an abortion. And of course, the poor, faultless, innocent living entity in the womb is, of course, the victim. But even the women themselves that have to go through this, they're sold this idea that they're very free and they can go roam about and, choose any partner they want, and they don't have to be tied down to anything. But then when they inevitably get pregnant from doing such a thing, then of course they're inclined to get an abortion because they have no shelter. They have no husband to take care of them, to take care of the baby, to help raise the baby, because the men don't care. And then they're just going to leave as soon as they find out that the woman's pregnant. And so they just, again, and society pushes them in that way. It's fine, just go get an abortion. It's fine. It's literally encouraged in that way. And another kind of hypocritical thing that I've noticed is a lot of times you see, you have like the conservatives that are God-fearing and Christian and like in this country, they're very, let's follow, Jesus and the Bible and let's live a godly life. But then at the same time, they're super into like killing and eating animals, right? They love doing that. But thou shalt not kill. They figured all that. So that kind of hypocrisy is there. But then the other side that I've seen is like the vegans and, don't torture the animals, and the dairy industry is horrible. They come after us, actually, which is funny because, we post on Instagram about protecting cows or something, and then, how are you supporting the dairy industry? You're such, they're like coming, I'm like, there's a lot of other people you could probably come at before us. I feel like we're trying to literally protect and worship cows, and treat them as our mother, and treat them as part of our family. But it's similar, they come out of it. That's a side point. But that the vegans, a lot of times they're on the other end of the spectrum, the more liberal and progressive kind of mentality. So they say that, but then they also at the same time fully support abortion, because it's the woman's right to choose, and it's her body, her choice. And if you don't do that, then you're oppressing women, and you're trying to take control over their body. It's their body and their bodily function. So at the same time, they're saying don't kill, don't torture these poor things, these poor innocent animals. At the same time, they say, oh, that embryo, that's not a living entity. That's not a human. That's not a person. It has no consciousness. It's just an object. It's just some matter. It's just some cells. They say the same thing. So it's, again, there's nobody that's saying don't kill at all, right? There's nobody that's like, look, don't kill animals and don't kill babies in the womb. That's not like a political stance, really. It doesn't seem like it's like either you want to, and again, the Christians are also very against abortion. So they're against abortion, but they love killing and eating animals. The vegans and the more liberal, a lot of them are against, and they're not all vegan, but some are like against killing animals, but for abortion. It's just amazing like hypocrisy and cognitive dissonance there. But we see that, of course, as Kashyapa is saying here, that your sons are going to be these horrible people. They're going to torture women, enrage the great souls. Of course, that's a very important, prominent factor, that they're enraging the great souls, because, again, as Prabhupada's saying here in this purport, the next verse. So it's towards the end. Everyone is subject to the miseries offered by material nature, but because the activities of miscreants, such as killing innocent people and animals or torturing women, are harmful to everyone and are therefore a source of pain for the devotees, the Lord comes down. So the devotees are enraged by seeing these things happen because these activities cause pain and suffering to everyone. They cause pain and suffering to those that are killing and eating the animals because they have to go through horrible sinful reactions for doing such things. And it causes obviously pain and suffering to the actual poor animals that are being killed and such. So yeah, these combination of these three things, that they're going to kill these poor faultless living entities, torture women, and enrage the great souls. And then Kashyapa is saying that at that time, the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, will descend and kill them, just as Indra smashes the mountains with his thunderbolts. So again, we see that the Lord, he comes down for a few reasons. One is to protect the devotees, one is to annihilate the miscreants. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. He also comes to reestablish dharma. And so he comes to do that. But Prabhupada is explaining that actually he comes down just for the sake of his devotees. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not need to descend in order to kill any strongly built body. Is a very nice explanation here, and it's interesting because, again, Kṛṣṇa says this: I descend to annihilate the miscreants and protect my devotees. But here Prabhupada's saying he doesn't need to descend to kill the demons, actually. Because why? Well, one is that Prabhupada is explaining there's many agents of the Lord, such as Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Goddess Durga, and Kali, who can chastise any formidable miscreants in the world. So they're extremely powerful devotees of the Lord that can take care of them. And even if, for example, like Hiranyakashipu and all these, they were so powerful that actually they, even like the demigods couldn't take them on. Even in such a situation, of course, the Lord came personally, but he doesn't have to personally come to chastise. He could come as, for example, what is the other form that of the Lord that kills almost all the demons nowadays? He could, exactly, yeah. He could come as a virus, but what form of the Lord kills all the demons? Yeah, time. Exactly, time. So easily, Kṛṣṇa is time I am. So he kills all these demons. He doesn't have to bother himself it's like below his pay grade, you could say. He doesn't have to come down and waste his time killing all these demons now because they're just insignificant. They're going to be either going to kill each other with atomic bombs or going to war or whatever, which happens a lot, or time will just kill them. Just give it some time. We see all these great, powerful rulers and presidents and stuff like that are here now. 50 years ago, who remembers who that was? Jimmy Carter was the president, probably around 50 years ago or something like that. And he just recently passed away and just recently died. Recently, yeah. And again, even when he passed away, who really remembered him? Only older people. And by that time, all of his, you just think, time had taken away everything from him. He was the most powerful, most famous person in the world probably at that time, back in the, 60s, I think. And look what, his youth was taken away, whatever beauty he had was taken away, his fame was taken away because, again, other people became famous. His fame was just diminished to nothing. And finally, time took away his life itself. So we see that. And again, these people that are powerful now, Trump and Putin, all these people, they will very soon, time will just also take them away. So again, he doesn't have to personally come just to kill any strongly built body, as it said here. But it's very interesting because, for example, with Hiranyakashipu, of course we know that he had performed such austerities and gotten such amazing, unique boons, you could say, from Lord Brahma, that he wouldn't be killed in this way or that way, inside or outside, day or night, in the sky or on the ground, right? And then so many by animal or by man, beast or by man. And so the Lord very creatively and expertly knew how to come and protect that boon, and so that his devotee, Lord Brahma, didn't become a liar. He didn't break that promise that his devotee had given, and at the same time to rid the world of such a demoniac personality. But the main thing wasn't that he came to just kill, but he came to protect his devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. So we see that. And so he comes down just for the sake of his devotees. Because, why? Because, well, the devotees are, again, as it said, that there are many agents of the Lord, many devotees that could actually kill many of these formidable, demons and miscreants. But the Lord comes to give pleasure to his devotees because the devotees want to see the Lord. And so the the Lord, he reciprocates and he says, okay, I will come and I will protect you and also give you the boon of being able to see me and actually, interact in my pastimes and such. And so we see, of course, that the beginning of the 10th canto, when all the demigods go and they pray to Vishnu to please come to the earth. The earth is overrun by these demoniac kings and is suffering. And so the distress of the devotee is an impetus to come pray for the Lord to come down and descend. And the Lord comes and all these great personalities take birth in the same dynasty so that they can also be part of these pastimes. So it's quite amazing. And he comes down just for the sake of his devotees. And again, so the devotee themselves isn't necessarily, like a pure devotee isn't thinking, well, I'm being tortured by these demons and I'm suffering so much, therefore I should pray for the Lord to appear. But it's more that they have compassion upon the other living entities. And the devotee never wants to ask anything from the Lord, ask the Lord to do some service for them. There's this nice verse that Tatena kampam susamikshmano bunjana ivatma kritam vipakam hridvag vaparbir vidadan namaste jiveta yumukti pade sadaya bhak. That, whatever sinful reactions I might be suffering from, whatever I'm going through, the devotee that simply just accepts that and continues to offer obeisances with their heart, mind, words to the Lord, liberation is their rightful claim. So this is the proper position of a pure devotee of the Lord, is that they're just tolerating whatever's going on. But we see here that when the other living entities are being, the innocent, faultless living entities are being killed, women are being tortured, it's an impetus to pray that, please, the Lord, please come down and, give your mercy and help these poor innocent souls that need your mercy. So then, of course, he comes down and he descends only to give relief to his ardent devotees. And we see, again, we just had recently Govardhan Puja, and Vishnu Chitta Prabhu was talking very nicely about that pastime and the amazing, act of simultaneously protecting all of the devotees of Vrindavan by holding up Govardhan Hill, and also at the same time crushing Indra's pride. And I was just thinking about this, that Indra is also a devotee of the Lord, he's a demigod. And as explained here, there are many agents of the Lord, such as Indra. That's the first one that Prabhupada mentions. And he got puffed up because, again, the residents of Vrindavan were traditionally offering, sacrifices to him to pray for rains and stuff like that. And Kṛṣṇa convinced them otherwise not to do it. So then, as we know, he brought this rains of devastation, Samvartaka clouds, right? Yeah, so the ones that come at the time of annihilation, universal devastation. And the description, as Vishnu Chitta Prabhu was explaining, of the torrents of rain, it's just, we can't imagine. It's like columns of rain, huge columns of just solid water coming down, but all the water was just drying up upon touching. It didn't even make the ground wet at all. And Indra's pride of being able to just destroy anything, just he can come, and he was, cutting the wings off of mountains, and his thunderbolt weapon is so powerful, and he's able to chastise so many enemies. But his pride was crushed by, again, this young boy that was just, he had no idea. And so at the same time as he was protecting the devotees of Vrindavan, in another way you could also say that he was protecting his devotee Indra by crushing his pride, and because pride is the enemy of a devotee. It's antithetical, is that word? Huh? Antithetical to devotional service. Trinada Pisanichana, we have to be humble, humbler than a blade of grass. And so when this pride arises, many times the Lord will actually personally, in some way or other, crush it for us. And it could be a very painful experience that we have to go through. But we can understand it to be the mercy of the Lord, that we have to go through this and have these things purified out of us. Because, again, this is a very dangerous mentality that's antithetical to practicing pure devotional service. And we see, again, there's so many examples I could go through of Kṛṣṇa and Vishnu, different avatars, protecting their devotees, protecting his devotees. Like I mentioned, Nrsimhadev came and protected Prahlad Maharaj. We have, so many paintings even. Agasura, right? And so all the cowherd boys ran into his mouth knowing this is a giant snake that, can kill us. But they said, Kṛṣṇa will protect us. Kṛṣṇa will protect. And that's a pretty interesting one, because generally it's that, it's not so often that devotees are like running into danger in order to be protected. Kṛṣṇa will protect us. We don't go out and, speed in our cars down 85 and like weave in and out of traffic, going 150 miles an hour and think, Kṛṣṇa will protect me. It's okay. So we don't do that, right? But it's just such an amazing pastime, because they knowingly ran into danger, knowing, Kṛṣṇa, it would be fun. Let's see how Kṛṣṇa protects us in this situation. And then Kṛṣṇa was, what do I do? How do I save them? And then he went in and went into the mouth, and then he grew, right? He grew really big, and then he killed the snake and saved everyone. So that's an amazing one. And then we have Gajendra over there. So again, another very classic example of the Lord protecting his devotee. Gajendra is in a very distressful situation. Is it 1,000 years that he was fighting this crocodile, or 100? 1,000 celestial years. 10,000. 10,000 celestial years he was stuck in the grips of this crocodile, and finally he offered his prayers to the Lord, and the Lord came and saved his devotee once again. Then we have Draupadi over there. Again, yet another example. Huh? So being threatened with losing her chastity and being disrobed in front of the entire assembly. And again, once she's completely lost hope, just as Gajendra, when he completely ran out of hope to save himself, called out to the Lord, Govinda, and he manifested as the cloth, and an infinite amount of cloth, and never, so she was protected in that way. So we see so many different pastimes, and again, they're very, very nice to hear about. Again, Devaki and Vasudeva also, Kṛṣṇa came down to kill Kamsa, but also to protect his devotees, Devaki and Vasudeva. So, again, just time and time again, we see so many amazing pastimes, and especially all of the different Vrindavan pastimes. There's the forest fire, where all the residents of Vrindavan were, right after Kaliya was chastised, I think this happened, that they went and they were coming back, and then there was a forest fire, and they were all threatened again to be killed, and then Kṛṣṇa swallowed it up. So again and again and again, we see Kṛṣṇa protecting his devotees, and it gives great pleasure to devotees to hear about these pastimes, how the Lord is protecting us. And so we can take actual shelter of the Lord and be assured that we are protected. And just because, we're being offered protection doesn't necessarily mean that we're being protected in terms of our physical body. We might still go through so many things. We might get horrible diseases or go through, accidents or whatever. But it means that we're being protected in terms of our devotional service. And Kṛṣṇa will never kick us away from his lotus feet. He will keep us as long as we are sincere and take shelter of Him. He will continue to come closer to us and encourage us to come closer to Him and help us in our devotional service. And we can see that in so many different ways. We're here, we take shelter of devotees at Kṛṣṇa Life and take shelter of Prabhupada's books. We take shelter of the holy name. The holy name is Kṛṣṇa Himself, so if we just take shelter of that, we are taking shelter directly of Kṛṣṇa. We're being protected by that. And we can see that we're, continuing on in devotional service. Things are going nicely, and there may be some bumps in the road, there may be some obstacles and challenges, but as long as we stick to it, I've seen many devotees that, and I'm very much in awe of them, that they go through many different difficulties, whether it's health-wise or in terms of just relationships with other devotees or their own, ability to maybe follow the principles and things like that. And they go through struggles, and they're not able to do it. And myself as well, of course, that there's always struggles mentally, but I take a lot of inspiration myself because I'm very weak in my own practice. But seeing other devotees go through very difficult things that I couldn't imagine going through myself, and continuing on in devotional service and not giving up the determination, not giving up the faith in Kṛṣṇa, just because some things happen to them. I know one devotee in particular that his health is always kind of like here and there, and there's always question marks about, when is your health going to be better? And it just seems to go on and on and on and on for years, that there's a struggle with health. And you have to take a very special diet and this and that. And it's just a lot of seeming suffering in the body. The body's going through a lot of turmoil, you could say. But still, they're just so steady in devotional service. They never question, why is Kṛṣṇa doing this to me? Why do I have to go through this? No, they just accept that, I must have done something to deserve this. And maybe this must be for my purification, and I just have to go through it, and I'm just going to deal with it. So it's a very inspiring thing to see. And Kṛṣṇa protects such a devotee. Again, like I was saying, tatena kampamsas mekṣamano, this verse. When we go through these troubles and we think, this is just, actually, we should have the mentality that I deserve worse than this, because at least, again, coming from any kind of background in this modern world, before becoming devotees, we've engaged in so many sinful activities, and we've all probably read this 5th canto of Bhagavatam, all the hellish punishments for sinful activities that generally the living entity has to go through. I was just reading this in the 11th canto that I'm trying to figure out how it was in there, because it was kind of just seemed like thrown in at the end of a chapter, but how if you steal anything from a brahmana, that you have to go to, you have to become a worm and stool for like 100,000 years or something. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Even if you just accidentally steal some small thing or whatever. I was like, my gosh, so there's so much danger at every step in the material world. But the amazing thing is that Kṛṣṇa can actually give us shelter from that. Our country can't give us shelter. Our family can't give us shelter. All these demoniac people are taking shelter of themselves, their own strength, their own ability to do something, and to conquer over the material. Again, as we see, Hiranyakashipu, he took it, that I can become immortal. I can become invincible. I can get this boon, and then nobody can kill me. And he literally thought, nobody will ever kill me. I cannot be killed. But the Lord came and killed him. So we shouldn't take shelter of all these false sources of shelter, I guess you could say. Our own pride, our own ability, our own strength, or something like that. Our strength is nothing at all compared to Hiranyakashipu, his ability to, engage in these austerities. And he stood on one foot, right, and for many, many, many years, and then ants were they ate his whole body, and then he was just a skeleton, and then he was maintaining the life air within the bones. Come on, we can't think of anything, we can't even conceive of doing anything close to that. And yet his strength is just like an ant's strength in comparison to an elephant when it comes to comparing his strength to Kṛṣṇa or something like that. So we shouldn't take shelter of these false false idols, false saviors, we could say, ourselves or our society or our country. See a lot of people taking shelter of, oh yes, when we get this new president, he's going to protect us and he's going to save us from whatever, the immigrants, or save us from this war. It's just all like very stupid to take such an idea, to take such kind of shelter. But we can confidently and happily take shelter of the Lord and count on His protection. Again, like I said, it might not be that He protects us in the way we want to be protected, that, oh, make sure that I have, dhanam, janam, sundarim, all these things. But He'll protect us in a way that's best suited to help us progress in devotional service. Again, another way that the Lord is protected, one was with Bharat Maharaj. So he was, great devotee. He was basically on his way back to Godhead. He was very close, and then he became attached to a deer. And it's all for the sake of pastime, but he became attached to this deer to give us an example, to show us, to give us a lesson. But because of that, of course, we understand that what we think of at the time of death is what we attain in the next life. But he was attached to this deer, and then he died thinking of that deer. And so for a non-devotee in such a state, they just be thrown into a body of a deer, and that's it. They're now an animal form of life. I guess they might have to go to hell first and suffer some sinful reactions first, and then they get in the body of a deer. And then you're in the animal form of life. You're going through 8.4 million species of life, just a lot of, birth, death, over and over again, so much suffering in there, and there's not much hope, until you get back to a human form of life. But the Lord protected him because He gave him remembrance of his past life and helps him understand that he's suffering in this way because of his attachment to that deer. And then, of course, he took the birth as Jad Bharat and went back to Godhead after that. So we see so many ways that the Lord will protect us, but it might not be in the way that, again, we want to be protected. But that's why we should give up any kind of our own desire and simply surrender to the desire of the Lord and, simply act according to His will. So, okay, I didn't have anything else to say. Is there any comments or questions, corrections?
Prabhu, in the airport yesterday, I think, I met this homeless lady. She said she had she was a teacher before, but she had some disability and so on and so on. But it seemed like she doesn't have any faith in God still. She went through a lot, but she still said, my family gave me a lot. I went to this Hope Atlanta, some non-profit run by a church. And she said the manager there, he stole all my money and they kicked me out like that. But my family, they are, giving me money or whatever. They're, keeping me for a couple of days. How would you respond to such people? Like, what would you say? I mean, suffering generally enables somebody to have some faith in God, but it seems like even though she went through like so much trouble, she still somehow has faith in the material society.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that every time someone suffers they get faith in God. There's an example that was given of in World War I think it was, France and Germany. And so all the soldiers were on the battlefield and all the women were back, praying in all the churches in both countries. Please let our side win, let my son or my husband or father come home. And then when, I guess the French basically got taken over, whoever lost, that entire, France, actually their entire society became atheistic after that. Because they said, God didn't give us what we prayed for, therefore He must not exist. So this is the demoniac mentality again, that they think, oh, It's like I was just saying, Krishna will protect his devotees, but it might not be in the way we want. And also, again, we're going to be put through things in this material world, like the non-devotees and stuff. They're going to go through so many things. They don't know where they're going. They don't know how they got there. They don't know why they're there. They don't know anything. They don't know who God is. Does God exist? So they're just completely lost and just like grasping at straws. So like she's grasping at her family, but it's fallible soldiers. It's okay. Anyway, it's kind of funny that they're giving her shelter, you said, a couple of days, but like, why don't they just let her stay there? It's like...
In this regard, there's this really phenomenal section in the Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava called Genuine and False Gora Bhajan. And in this, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he speaks about how there was one person who was known to be a big devotee of Lord Gauranga.
Big devotee.
Like, he loved Lord Gauranga, and always he'd be chanting, Gora, 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 Gora. He'd be chanting Gora, Gora, Gora wherever he went, always chanting the names of Lord Chaitanya, always, oh, Bhav, like, you know them, people. So, he was like that, and then his daughter got some kind of sickness.
Oh, yeah, I've heard this.
And when his daughter got this kind of sickness, and his bhakti to Lord Chaitanya increased more and more and more, his bhakti just kept increasing. And like, he was, serving his guru like never before, serving the deity like never before, and praying hard to Gaura, this and that and this and that. And then once his daughter died, he stopped chanting Lord Gaura's name. So then the people around him asked him, what happened? Why didn't you, what happened to you chanting Gaura? Gaura? Who's Gaura? Gaura? I don't know who Gaura is. If Gaura was God, he would have saved my daughter. And then he gives many, many reasons why actually Lord Chaitanya should have saved his daughter. He says, let me try to find exactly what verse that is. He says, not verse, okay. Okay, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says this one thing. He says, the highest benefit tastes bitter, whereas temporary benefit tastes sweet. If a patient tells a doctor to give him sugar cakes instead of bitter medicine, his accepting the doctor is merely a show. Similarly, there is no use of taking refuge in the Lord while trying to increase one's disease. This is the whole point. That people want to take refuge in God to increase their own disease of material existence. Therefore, it's completely bogus. If we ignore the teachings of Sri Chaitanya, we transmogrify him, or his devotee, into Satan.
Transmogrify.
Basically, like you morph Lord Chaitanya, you morph his devotee into Satan. He says, when we no longer strive for material benefits, our false devotion to Gaura will vanish. And he makes this point that the Gaura that he worshipped never actually existed. Because the God that they worship doesn't actually exist. Because their conception of God, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, is that he is a supplier of wood for their insatiable fire of material desires. That's what they want. That's what they want from God. And when that doesn't happen, immediately they lose faith in Lord, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As in the case with this personality. His name was Mr. Basu, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, I can go on. I can pull up a few verses. But you had something that could.
If you kind of analyze these people, that just because you're suffering doesn't mean your pride gets smashed. That's one. Those are two different things here.
Yeah.
So in order to come to a level of humility, your pride has to be smashed. But just because you go through suffering, some people develop more pride into I don't deserve the suffering. So when you put yourself in a position where you think you don't deserve that suffering, that means you're proud, actually, because you don't recognize that this is what you deserve from your past life or your karma and such and such. So one doesn't come to a position of humility So then he's in illusion. You can see that before pride comes before a fall and such. But pride, it covers the living entity with more illusion. So people in this world, just because they suffer, it's not a pre-qualification to come to devotional service actually. Sometimes we think like that, okay, people who are suffering, it's easier for them to take it up. Maybe. Depends if they're in a position of, if they've become humbled. And we can kind of take that and also take it into devotional service also, because this is a big thing for us, and that that we should become humbled, not just under circumstances of suffering. And I was speaking with Shantanu yesterday and saying that actually we should become humbled by the service that we do. That when we do service, whether it is great service or small service, we should become humbled. That we should feel as a servant of Kṛṣṇa, that Kṛṣṇa is working as an instrument, not as the master. And I was mentioning this point that when we come to that position where we see Kṛṣṇa as ourselves as an instrument, a humble instrument in the hands of our spiritual master, and then we understand that we're getting closer to pure devotional service. But when we're feeling that, when we did some service, big service or small service, that I'm the proprietor of that and all of this sort of thing, then we become overcome by pride. So we accept the devotees will glorify you and all this, but we give recognition to the spiritual master within our mind, because it's not artificial. No, it's not. But okay, yes, I'm acting as a proper instrument. So it's the same thing that just like atheists, because their pride, they're so proud, they can't see God anywhere. It doesn't matter what they go through. Similarly, but those who devotees, they can see God everywhere because they're humble. And to the extent that we see also in our lives how humble we become, 24 hours a day, we can chant the holy name of the Lord 24 hours a day. It means we can see the Lord 24 hours a day. So this is one kind of way to also kind of taking that further also, that is pride within our own also life. You can see that in book distribution, you see such people. And sometimes you can see, okay, how does this apply to me in my life also? How that, it's not that way every situation, but also we can see, these people, they're suffering like anything and still they won't surrender to Kṛṣṇa. I'm also suffering like anything, I still won't surrender to Kṛṣṇa. So
it's not like suffering is an impetus for bhakti, otherwise bhakti would depend on karma.
Otherwise the Gaza people and all this.
Yeah, they would all become pure devotees. I mean, basically anyone who suffers would become a pure devotee, if that were the impetus.
A lot of times people that suffer, they then want to make other people suffer.
Yeah.
They become...
I mean, most of the
murderers.
time when people suffer, they become bitter.
Yeah.
We see that within devotional circles. Sometimes we go through, and situations are crazy sometimes within also the society, but in that generally a lot of devotees that have spent their youths dedicating their lives in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, later they may become bitter because they went through, in the Brahmacharya ashram, you go through some level of suffering, whether it's meant, like you're saying, mental, physical, whatever it may be. But then later they go, I dedicated my life and I did all this, and they just become bitter about it and they leave devotional service. But that same suffering, we see it saying that our own spiritual master has exhibited that level of difficulty dealing with his body and going through so much. But you see, like, pure devotional service arise out of that. He's a pure devotee. But you see how he's teaching us how pure devotional service is not dependent on any material situation, and how any situation that we have in our life can be a catalyst to actually to come to the platform of pure devotional service, and it can even be helpful, those difficult situations. But those who are full of pride, they can't understand that. It's very difficult, very, very, very difficult, because it's always their fault. It's always the institution's fault. Actually, you take responsibility for the problems you have. Life is so much better. Even if it was so many people's fault, you just take responsibility. Okay, I deserved it, fine. Now how do I deal with it? So anyway, it's a big topic, but yeah.
I found this section where he says, okay, now this guy whose daughter died, he says, there is no such Mahaprabhu. If truly there were Bhagwan, he would not cause suffering to his devotee. If he were truly present in everyone's heart, then knowing the pain that would afflict the heart of his devotee, surely he would have saved my daughter. His greatness as God would have become more widespread in this world. Devotees' faith and devotion to him would have grown 1,000,000 times. Wow. They would have preached his greatness to others and brought them to worship him. All members of the family would have increased their faith in Mahaprabhu. And once revived, my daughter would have become so much more attracted to him. People in ignorance have faith in the Lord and chant the name of Mahaprabhu. But this is more philosophic to go about once daily work than to utter the name of Gora. That is the truth. So that was the opinion of the person. So then, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur addresses at length, but he just opens up saying, the Mahaprabhu whom I have taken shelter of is not the Mahaprabhu of our Babu. He takes Mahaprabhu to be a hired gardener. Like, I know I want this, I want you to grow this, I want you to grow that. I take shelter of Mahaprabhu of Srivas Pandit. Mahaprabhu spoke to Srivas, who was absorbed and moved of prema as follows. Now look at this. Putra shoka na janile je mora preme hena sabha sanga mui chadiva ke mane. How can I ever leave the association of such a person who, due to his love for me, is unaffected by the demise of his own son? And he says, I worship Mahaprabhu of Srivas Pandit, who told the ladies of his house to stop their crying. If by this halabaloo the Lord's ecstasy is disturbed, then today I shall enter the Ganga and commit suicide. So the whole pastime is that Mahaprabhu is having an ecstatic kirtan in Srivas's house, and then Srivas's son dies in the middle of the kirtan. And the ladies are crying and the kirtan is going on, but Srivas hears them and he goes and sees what happens. And immediately when he goes, he says, stop, you stupid woman. He tells her to, if because of our crying, Mahaprabhu's ecstasy is disturbed, I will drown myself in the Ganga. That is a Mahaprabhu that I worship. That is a Mahaprabhu that I worship. Not the Mahaprabhu who's supposed to be my hired gardener, who's supposed to gratify my senses. So they think that's the whole point. That's the whole point. They think God means he should be my servant. They don't think God means that I should be his servant. God means he should be my servant. I have so many desires. Why isn't God fulfilling them? Maybe I should leave Hanuman and go to Sai Baba. That's what they think. I went to Hope Church when then this what happened. Because they have no conception of God, actually. That is Mahaprabhu. That's the Mahaprabhu. And this is probably my most favorite section of Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. Genuine and false Gaur Bhajan. If you have the time, you can look at it. It's in volume 3.
That's a great point. I mean, there's also the point that now in modern society is becoming more atheistic because we've developed so many more sophisticated ways to gratify our senses. And before, it wasn't so sophisticated, and they had to pray to God for this and that and this and that. But now it's like people feel like they don't need it, But yeah, even if they feel like they it's like, oh, God's just like an extra thing to give me more sense gratification in this way, and I can just kind of use it in that way. So yeah, it's 8:59. Should I end? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyavcha Padītānām pāvanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.